Hi everybody, how's it going? Welcome in. I'll be starting in a couple seconds. I'm just getting kind of giving everybody a couple of minutes to join in. In the meantime, you can let me know where you're watching from if you want to share. I love knowing where everybody's from. This is Anna, by the way, instructor Anna, just to make sure that you know who is talking to you. And we're going to be doing the tulips, the blooming tulips today. So these ones were done in watercolor paper, cold press. But today I'm going to be actually using hot press paper, which is it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more smooth. So in the original one, there's a little bit of texture going on because I also utilized some color pencils. So this one's going to be a little bit softer, I feel, in terms of the application. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, I will go over the materials. But if you've missed it, you can just let me know and I can write it out. And make sure to get a drink. It's a Friday. I'm so excited. It's Friday. It was a very long week. So let me go over really quickly the stuff that you might need. So obviously you'll need watercolor paper. You can use any watercolor palette you may have. You can also use watercolor color pencils, sorry. These are Faber-Castell. They're really nice. You can definitely use those. And you'll need a little cup of water, of course, and a couple of brushes. I'm going to be doing, there's not like super intense detail in this one. It's fairly simple. So you don't need any crazy like small brushes, but you can utilize like these two, like a medium size. This is a number 3 and this is a number 1. Something like that would be okay. So those would be nice. In terms of color palette, obviously you need a dark green and a light green. I'll show you the ones that I used in form of watercolor pencils. I use these two. So these are nice, and you'll use the dark one for like the shadows and the light one for like the lighter parts. But I'll go over the colors in a little bit. We're going to sketch it out first and then we'll start coloring. All right. So for the sketch, I'm going to sketch it pretty dark just so that everybody can see. And let me just make it a little brighter. But you will, I recommend that you sketch it quite light. Okay, because it will make your life easier when you color it. So just keep that in mind. All right. So for this one, they're obviously these gorgeous little tulips, but they do look like little circles, right? When you first started looking at it. So we're going to focus on the big one here because that's going to be our centerpiece, or like our most important one, I guess you could say. Okay, so we're going to start by creating a nice round shape. If at any point you're having a hard time seeing, just let me know and I can adjust it. But we're just going to do a nice little shape. So it doesn't have to be the same position, by the way. If you want it to be more, by the way, I'm going to do the top part very lightly because I'm just trying to create the shape right now. So I'm not worrying about the actual petals individually. Okay, so we have the shape so far, and it's a little bit more tilted, and I'm okay with that. Once you have the shape, you can start deciding where you want to put them. And what we're trying to basically achieve is give it volume, right? So we want to do the curved lines of each petal. So we're going to do the first one here. It's going to be curving down. Now, for this specific, it is a live video, right? So you can, I believe, pause and rewind. You just can't fast forward. So just keep that in mind. I hope. Oops. But like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know. Oops. There we go. Okay, perfect. So now that you have that one, you can start adding the second one, which is going to be right over here. So let me just it kind of all connects with each other, right? So you want to kind of have a connection. So the middle part is probably the most important one when you first start out. And then you can start adding the ones on the side, which are just going to come out slightly. And the tulip, like the color of the tulips can be very different as well. I used this like really pretty purpley red. Can you guys see it? It's hard to see it over the camera, but it's really nice. But I might change it a little bit slightly tonight. And then we're going to do, so now you notice that I didn't go all the way up and I left this little area here on the back. That's because you can actually do the rest of the petals kind of popping, kind of just creeping up a little bit, just showing, saying, oh, they're there. They're kind of like a little, like a bulb. And there we go. So if you feel like it's too close and you wanted to bring it out a bit more, you can add an extra little piece here to kind of bring it out a bit more so it's not as closed. But I'll kind of leave that up to you if you feel like you'll need it or not. And we have our middle one, or our main one, sorry. So with the main one, we don't want to do the stem yet. You can do a little bit of it just to know where it's coming out, but you don't want to do the whole stem because there's going to be overlapping going on. So the next flower that we're going to do is going to be this one right here. So this little one right there. The reason we're going to move on to that one is because it's on top of this one slightly, right? So we're going to do the same shape we did before. We're going to do a kind of like an egg shape coming out like this. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just sketching it out. Kind of comes out a little bit. There we go. That looks okay. And I kind of switched places here where this one's more tilted and this one's a little more straight. I kind of switched the positioning a little bit, and that's okay. Okay, so we have our oval now. You can make it a little bit more crooked if you want. There's no wrong way of doing it because it's a, what do you call it? It's a flower, right? So it's organic, so you don't have to stress out too much. Now, the petals on this one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to start with this one right here. And that one is kind of starting from the top. You're going to start curving it up and doing like a pointy end. Like that. So we have one little petal there. You can always clean it up a bit more. So that one is there. Now you can do the middle one, which is going to be coming out this way. And petals are really fun to draw, but they can be a little tricky because there's a lot of overlap to them sometimes. It depends on the flower, right? So then you have this one, and then the other one is going to be coming out this way. So when you draw this initial shape of it, by the way, you can actually increase the size if you want to, or just leave it the way that it is. Because then we're going to do the back ones. We're going to do one here and one here. I love tulips. They're so pretty. And I did like a little line here just to kind of signify the split. See what I mean? Keep it nice and simple. Again, you can always adjust things and add more contrast once you color it. So it's not too bad. And then I can start closing the stem a bit more because this one is finished. So we're going to bring down the stem a bit more, kind of curving into the middle, right over here. Try not to make the stem too large because I have trouble with that sometimes. Like if sometimes you kind of think thicker is better. Just be careful because they do have a pretty thick curve, but you just want to make sure it's not too thick. And then this one can start coming out this way. Some of them will have more of a curve than others. So that's something you want to kind of keep in mind as well. And this specific artwork is kind of similar to the lilies painting. If you guys were there for that one, you would know what I'm talking about. But it's very flowy. Fix this one a bit more. Okay, that looks okay. So you don't have to stress out about the bottom part because they're all going to be meeting at the same points. So they're all going to be around here. So you don't have to connect them or finish them because we're going to create this like watery look to it at the very bottom. Okay. Okay. So now we have these two. We'll move on to the other two, or the other three, sorry. And this one's going to be right over here. We're just going to do another little bulb. I call them bulbs, but I don't think that's the right word for it. They look like little bread flowers, if that makes sense. I just have like this egg shape to them at first. I find the egg shape kind of works really well. I do also notice how I make it darker at the bottom and lighter at the top. So that's something to keep in mind. Right? And I'd love to know if anybody watching has tulips at home, whether it's in your garden or in your house. I used to have them in my garden a long time ago, but then they kind of disappeared. I just didn't take care of them as well as I should have, so that's probably why. So then the next little petal is going to be coming out. It's going to be similar to this one, where it's just going to be curving up. Now this one's going to be a little bit of a different perspective, okay? Because we're not going to see the other side of it. You're just seeing the top part. This one's going to have it come out this way. And then lastly, this one's going to come out this way. Something like that. So if you feel like it's too small and too simple, feel free to add another little section kind of hidden in there. And that's it. And then this one, again, we're just going to start bringing it down. But you don't want to do it all the way because we're going to add one more flower over here. This funny looking one. And it's only funny because it's kind of a different position. So it's a little bit more tricky. But we're going to do, again, the same shape we did before. We're just going to do kind of like an oval shape. Because we want to have a base, right? We want to just have a base for our flower. We don't want to have it kind of come from nowhere. There we go. So then you're going to, for this one, it's a little bit different. There's a little bit more curve going on. So the first petal, I'll show you how I draw it. So you can start by doing like a round shape going up like this. And then you're going to go around the circle that we drew. So it looks kind of like that. Kind of looks like a teardrop, but slightly bigger and longer. And I just want to... Okay. So it looks like that. And then you can add a little section coming on this other side. Like that, but it should be a lot smaller And then on top of that one, you'll add one more. Now this one is a little bit tricky because this one is going to be the connection of doing the inside. So once you have this shape, you can start bringing it in like that and do a bigger one this way. Okay, that one's a little bit tricky, but it does have like a heart shape. I'm going to zoom it in a little bit so you guys can see better. It has like a little bit of a heart shape, actually quite a bit like a heart shape. I'm going to clean it up a bit so you can see. There's a little bit of a heart shape and it kind of goes in a bit and then out. So it is a little bit of a trickier shape. So feel free to pause it or, because if you pause it, I think it still works. But I could be wrong. Either way, if you don't feel comfortable with this one as much, you can just do another one that looks like this. Okay. This one's kind of like the challenging one. Because then it's going to have a petal coming out of here. Like that. There we go. And that's it. Then you can clean it up a bit. You can start erasing some of these pencil lines that we don't need. So they're nice and clean. Now the inside doesn't have to have like a specific detail to it, but you do want to kind of have these little like seeds. You could just do these little like tiny little seeds inside. They don't have to have too much detail to them though. Okay. And then you could just do the stem. You're going to have the stem coming down this way. Now the stem over here on the top kind of gets in the way a little bit. So I'm going to actually curve it so that it kind of comes out this way. So it's a little bit more interesting. See? So it can kind of come out a bit more so that it doesn't look awkward or as awkward. It kind of has a connection here. But you can see what works for you. If you like a different design, that's fine too. And that's it. Now there is a top one here, a little one. That one's kind of optional. I don't know if I want to add it, but I will just because that's how the original looks. But if you feel like it's too much, you don't have to have it there, okay? But the little one is just a nice little circle here. It's going to be your smallest one. So don't worry. And it's going to be the farthest away one. So it's just going to look like the first one we drew. So it kind of goes up. And then you do the sides. This one is probably the simpler one to do, like the one that from the first one. So you don't have to stress as much about that one. And then the stem can kind of go straight down. Like that. However, if you want to bring it, kind of give it a different direction, because I think it might be too much going on this way. So let's maybe actually add it this way. And that might look better, actually. Something like that. I think that works better. Yeah, okay. We'll leave it like that for now. So there's your 5 tulips. Nicely sketched. So then the green leaves, those are really fun to add. They're kind of randomized almost, but I'll show you the ones that I think are the most essential. So there's a little space right here that where you can add a nice long leaf, and you're going to make it behind some of the flowers. Right? So we want to have it nice and behind it. Like that. And then we'll do another one kind of coming up this way. And this one can kind of bend. So there's a little bit of a dark part here. do something like that. Now try to make it nice and even. So if you're going to do 2 here, let's add 2 over here as well. And these ones are very forgiving. Like you can do a lot of different styles of leaves, but these ones, they're just nice and long. They're kind of like flowy. So they kind of look like that. So you want to kind of have this like triangular design, right? Try to think of your composition, how it would look if you had it a different way. And then maybe we'll add one more going up this way. And that looks okay. And then maybe one over here. I personally love adding that little dip that I did. If anybody wants like a slower version, like detail of that, let me know. If you don't know how to do that, all you have to do is follow this shape and go down and do another triangle like that. And that's it. So I think that's a good amount. I'm not going to add any more because I think it looks really nice this way. And I think I added about the same amount, so it should be okay. I think there's one over here that I didn't add. And that's it. Let me just zoom out really quickly so you can see better. Okay. So my sketch is obviously pretty dark, but just so that you guys can see it properly, I'm just going to move this for a second, but I'll bring it back as soon as I adjust this more into the middle. Okay. So for this ones, I'll show you what colors might look pleasing for it, or the ones that I use for my painting. The tulips obviously can be a different color if you want to change the color. The color that I use doesn't do it justice with the camera, but in pictures and like in real life, it looks really vibrant. But this is kind of like the color I use. But I'm going to probably layer out the whole painting with regular watercolors, and then go on top of them with some pencil crayons, color pencils. They can either be regular color pencils or they can be watercolor pencil crayons. Do you guys say colored pencils or colored crayons? Because I used to say colored pencils. No, pencil crayons, but people are like, oh, you mean colored pencils. So those ones. All right. So I'm using my pretty yucky palette. It's very messy, but it does the job. And I'll show you. Do you guys see this color right here? It's kind of like a maroon purple color. I'll show you in a little scrap piece of paper so you can see it. Can you kind of see that? That looks nice, yeah. So it has a little bit of purple undertones and a little bit of red in it. It's very pretty, and I think that will do really nice. So for this one, we're actually going to work backwards. We're going to do the yellow part and then the red part on top. Okay. So for the yellow part, I'm using this yellow right here. Oh, hold on. I'll just clean it up a bit. I'll show you the yellow. It's a very vibrant yellow, but you can use a more warm yellow if you like. That's a nice yellow. I'm going to use those colors to start. And you always want to start nice and light from the bottom here. I'm just going to start applying my yellow. Nice and pigmented because it's yellow, so I'm not really afraid of it too much. And I'm going to start pushing it upward as high as you want it to be. So it doesn't have to go that high, but you can make it pretty high. However, you want to dip your brush in the water and kind of clean it a bit so that you can blend the yellow more so that it has that little watery color. And don't worry if you go all the way to the top, because the red that we're going to add is going to take over that color a little bit. So once you do that, you can start with the top part. So the top part, my recommendation is to outline the petal a little bit and then start placing your pigment and pushing it down. Just be careful. You don't want to have too much water at the beginning because you want it to be nice and pigmented, and then you can just dip your brush again and clean it so that there's no pigment, and you're just going to blend the colors a little bit. There we go. Okay, so somebody asked if I could use the color names. Yes, I will do that for you in just a second. Just gonna blend this out a bit. So see, you kind of want to give that blending effect. Mind you, this might look a little bit less rough because this is different type of paper. So this is cold press and this is hot press. So that might be the big difference. Okay, so let me see if I can find you the color, because it's weird. The little palette that I have didn't have the names of the colors, but I do have another palette that might have the same color and have the actual name. So thank you for asking. I will show you in just a second. All right, so I believe this is a pretty close comparison. Let me just find out the name really quickly. I get these like tiny little palettes that last me forever. Okay, this is a pretty good comparison. Okay, so this one is it's actually called Permanent Rose, which in camera, I swear it looks more orange than red. So, but it looks like this. It kind of looks like this rosy color. It's not quite fully red. It's more like purpley red. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah, so it's a little bit more vibrant. So something like this will look really nice. Tina. Hopefully I say your name right. So that's the one I'm using, and it's called Permanent Rose. It's from this brand. Permanent Rose. Okay, I hope that helps. And the yellow is called Lemon Yellow. Okay. So I'm going to use Permanent Rose for this one. To that one. Oh, hi, Gloria. Nice to see you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Must be so nice. Is it nice in Florida? Because it's very cold here in Canada. And it's very sad because it's already March. Okay. So I'm just blending it as much as I want to. It's up to you how blended you want it. But so that's how you want to start. So you start with the yellow on the bottom and then the reds on the top. Okay, you're laying out that color nice and thick. Let me just adjust this one. So I hope that helps in terms of color, because there is quite a bit. It doesn't have to look exactly like that one. Like I said, I use like a very weird red that has purple undertones. But I think it looks okay. It just looks a little bit more orangey in the picture. So I'm just laying out the pigment thick in the top, and then I'm going to start diluting it as I go down. You can dip your brush again, and you're going to kind of dilute it a bit. See, that looks kind of purpley. So I'm just going to adjust this one a little bit. There we go. You can always add more pigment, so don't worry about that too much. You can add more pigment as you go. It's always easier to add more rather than take off the pigment. I'm just going to start adding it down this way. And this video will be available for you to watch afterwards as well. So keep that in mind if you're trying to find the correct colors and whatnot. Okay, perfect. Yeah, the video, I don't know, the picture just makes the colors look so much more orange every time. So it's a little disappointing because the colors are very pretty. It could be the type of light I have also. Maybe if it was a warmer light, it would change it. But it shouldn't, because the cooler should make it show the purple. It's a little unfortunate, but that's okay. Everybody has different colors, so it's okay. Okay, good. I am so subconscious about pronouncing names incorrectly, so thank you for letting me know. Oh, nice. Australia. Wow. That's awesome. My friend lived in Adelaide as well. She moved there a couple of years ago. But I haven't gone to visit yet. There we go. That looks pretty nice. So I'm happy with those. And then you just continue doing that. This is one of those paintings that's very relaxing because it's kind of repetitive. You just have to keep doing the same thing. Especially for the first few of them. However, when you start getting to like the ones that are kind of in the back, so these ones, for example, you want to have them a little bit more pigmented so that they kind of stand out a bit more, right? You don't want to make them like have them all on their own. There we go. Looks pretty nice. And I'm just using, if you're curious to know what size brush I'm using, I'm actually using a 3 with a really fine tip. But you can use a much smaller size if you like. I just wanted to let you know what size I have. Yeah, I'm so jealous about that. I'm happy for you, though, that it's nice and hot. But you know what? We always here in Canada, we complain about the weather when it's cold. And then when it's hot, we complain about that too. So can never be happy. Now the back petals, you only have to use a little bit of water and pigment because you actually don't want them to be darker. You want them to be a little bit lighter, okay? Because they're at the farther out. So whatever's closest to you would be a little bit more pigmented, and whatever's farthest would have a bit less pigment. So you kind of almost want to make them look like they're being dipped in pigment. And you have to be very patient with watercolors. Blending things can take a little bit of time, but look how much softer these look compared to these ones. And just to show you really quickly, if I actually go over these with my brush and water, it activates the watercolor in the crayons that I used. So it looks really nice. I should have probably blended them a little. This was the second one I did anyway, so it kind of just, it's up to you how you want it to look. Just gonna blend it out a bit. So see, the color is a little bit more vibrant. But what I was going for mostly was the texture. However, I like the softness of it a little bit more. I think it looks a little bit nicer. And you can drag down the red more, the rose red, so that you're covering those pencil lines. Okay, it looks good. So far, it looks okay. I might have put too much yellow, but that's okay. You could always, I think it looks kind of nice because it looks like a nice blend. But if you want to avoid that and you want it to be more red, just bring out the color more, like down. And then it should be okay. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to go back with my yellow to add a little bit of yellow down here. This time I'm going to add much less, just so you guys can see the difference. I'm just adding a little bit of yellow and kind of blending it out a bit. So it's a bit more subtle. Like that. And then I can go back with my rose gold. Sorry, not rose gold. Rose, what is it called again? Permanent rose, sorry. Permanent rose. I'm going to start with this one. So I find like a not super small brush helps me out a little bit more, because it saves me a little bit of time with changing the position of my strokes. So see how I lay out the pigment, right? Now I'm going to dip my brush into some water and I'm going to dilute it and kind of bring it, kind of start fading it out into the yellow so that it starts to blend. So it's a lot of figuring out how much water you want to put in your brush. Okay, because sometimes maybe you put too much. So it's always good to start with more than, and then add progressively. And this one, I'm going to add this much and then dip it in water again and just blend it out. So this one has a much larger area that has the red, and I like that. I think I'm happy with that. just gonna add a bit here. Also, does anybody celebrate St. Patrick's? I kept thinking it was today, and it wasn't today. It's on Sunday, I believe. Very exciting. I'm going to add a bit more pigment. So it is very repetitive in the sense that you just want to keep adding and taking away some color here. But it's nice and relaxing. There we go. Let me see if I can. Oh, no, never mind. I was trying to see if I could adjust the color, but I can't. Okay, never mind. We'll have to make do with that color. It just looks so different in real life. I'll try to get a better light, I think, next time. There we go. So I think that looks pretty nice. Now, these ones are a little bit different than this one's because also watercolor tends to dry pretty dull. So that's what I was talking about, where you can use, once it starts to dry, you can use a watercolor pencil crayon to kind of start making these areas kind of pop a bit more by adding a little bit of texture. This is completely optional though, because not everybody likes the texture that what they can give. So it's just up to you if you like it. I mainly like to use it for like the areas like the pencil lines. If you don't want your pencil lines to be there and you want more color rather than pencil lines, you can do that. So these ones are going to be also light. However, this back one is going to have pigment. There we go. And honestly, sometimes watercolor, you just have to let it do its thing. And it really kind of pops nicely on its own. There we go. I think that looks pretty nice. Just adding a little bit of red here. Okay. And then moving on to this one, which is a little bit different as well. It has the pigment kind of on the sides here. And I'm not going to add any yellow to this one because the yellow is actually going to be in the center. So I'm just going to leave it alone for now. And you could technically color the whole thing one swatch. So you can actually color this one completely one color to start, because you don't have to stress about the yellow blending. So I'm just putting in the color. And then maybe even here a little bit. You want to leave a little bit of space in the middle because the middle is going to have that yellow. Something like that. You just want to put it in. Sometimes if your brush has too much water, you just have to clean it up. That's why a good paper towel is good, or a little towel. I tend to use my shirt, so probably don't do that. But I have like a watercolor shirt where like I only use it when I paint. So that works okay. Okay. So now that I have a flat tone to it, I can start adding the darker parts with more pigment. Oops. And you could start very dark, like super dark. It just depends how much you want to have. I'm adding a little bit of darkness here. Now I'm going to wet my brush and clean it so that I can dilute it. And I know it's very repetitive, but just want to remind these steps. There we go. It doesn't look too bad. I think it looks pretty. The color kind of pops nicely. Just have to be careful with the application part, especially because they're very small areas here that kind of pop a little bit more than others. So, and then we could do the top part here. So, and I'm also curious if anybody knows what their kind of paper they're using. Are you guys using watercolor paper? Sorry, are you using hot press or cold press? Because you can really tell the difference in my two paintings right off the bat. Well, I hope you can. That the hot press is much smoother application, and then the cold press, it has a little bit of a roughness, which I absolutely love, actually. The only reason I'm using this one is because they ran out of stock of the one that I like. So I'm using this for now. But it still turns out really nice because it has that beautiful, soft application to it. It's just a preference thing. For watercolor, usually it looks nicer with, well, I guess it depends, really. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next little flower. I'm just kind of adding a little bit of yellow. Again, keeping it nice and small amounts. Because I also think that I added too much yellow to this one, and that's why it looks a little bit orangey. So, something to consider. And then I'm going to go to the top part. So the top part is going to have this very nice, also be careful with the yellow, because when you're switching it back and forth, it can sometimes, the yellow can stick around, and that might make your flower a little bit more orange than you want it to. Unless you want it to be orange, that's okay too. I know tulips come in like a very diverse amount of colors. So your goal basically is to try to blend them as best as possible. But it's fairly easy to blend them when you're using watercolors. You just have to know not to overdo it, because when you put too much, and it could be a little overwhelming. So sometimes I let it do what it's, kind of see where it's going, where the watercolor is going. So I feel like right here, this looks nice, but it might need a little help. So I'm going to clean my brush and add a little tiny bit of water to blend it out. Because sometimes it might need help, sometimes it might not. You just have to kind of watch it and see what it's doing. And we're going to go down this way. Oh, it looks nice. And the last one over here is going to be nice and dark. Ooh, there we go. Cute. Okay, that looks pretty nice. I think they look nice. So like I said, they do dry pretty dull, like more dull than when you put them in. So keep that in mind. You can always activate them again by just going over them a bit more. Just be careful with how much water you add to your paper. If your paper is not super thick, it might affect the flower itself. Okay, I think that looks okay so far. I'm happy with the shape. Sorry, the color, I mean. That looks okay. And then we have our last little flower. You can let me know also how you feel about the application. Are you finding it nice and smooth, or is it a little bit more difficult? You can kind of add little blobs of color here that pop. That's okay too. I think it looks really nice like that too. Sometimes the watercolor, if you're purposely making your watercolor look like a watercolor, I think that's awesome. Because I feel like some people don't like that application. And there's different ways to utilize watercolors for the most part. You could be very loose with it and very like purposely make it look like watercolor, or you can be very detailed with it and kind of make it look semi-realistic, you know, because it has so many layers. I like a little bit of both styles, but either way, it looks really like kind of up to you on how you like it. Oh, hi, another person from Australia. That's awesome. Welcome in. Kimkini. I think hopefully I'm saying your name right. Love to see that. There we go. Yes, so watercolor paper is great. You definitely want to utilize watercolor paper for this one because the thicker the better. There is a lot of blending in here going on. However, you can adjust the amount of water you put in. So I'm using watercolor paper. This one was cold press, and this is watercolor paper. Hot press. So this one's a little bit smoother. This one's a little bit thicker, or rougher, I guess you could say. Yeah, Arches cold press is great. That's a really, really nice one. That's usually the one that I use. I just didn't have it in stock, so I had to use. Although people might say that hot press is more, it's finer. You know, it just depends on the style that you're going for. So any watercolor paper that you have should work just fine. Yeah. Because, like I said, we started with the blending part of it. So even though it doesn't have like a crazy amount of water, giving you that freedom of adding however much water you want is very beneficial when you're painting with watercolors, right? So that way you're able to not stress out about it. Because sometimes when you have a type of watercolor paper and it's not thick enough, it can affect the look of your paper. If you overdo it with water, it can make the paper kind of clumpy. So just be careful. So see how over here, now I'm going to clean my brush and kind of wipe it a little bit so it's clean and I can just blend out the colors. Nice and blended. And there we go. Yeah. There's some areas that might look really nice, not blended, like over here. It doesn't look great on camera, but it looks really good in my paper. So these little splotches of areas kind of look nice and pretty. So I'm going to leave them like that for now, but absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say that actually, like the colors selection, I couldn't pick a good color selection because there's so many pretty colors for tulips that I ended up just going with this like kind of rosy purple color. And again, it doesn't do it justice in the camera, but yeah, use whatever colors you like for the tulips. The kind of like gradient look looks really nice. So if you do that, you could do like a pink at the bottom, like a really light pink and like a really dark red over here, stuff like that. Or you could just do one whole color. But the application that I'm showing in the video is mostly blending two colors, right? So try to find colors that that look good together. Now for the green part, so the green leaves, we're going to use a light green and a dark green, right? Because the dark green is going to be used as the shadows, and the light green is going to be our main color. Yeah. I did use this one for the green, but I'm going to use an actual watercolor color so I can tell you the names of it. Let's see. Okay, so I have this green, the main green. So not the highlights, not the shadows. This green I'll show you really quickly. It's called the yellow green, which is so weird because, well, I guess it is kind of a yellow green, but it looks like this. It's very grassy looking. And it's like a little panel, and it's called yellow green. which I don't think it's quite right, but that's what it's called. So yeah, any like light green that you have, I think would be okay. So you're just gonna basically color all of the stems green. We're just gonna start with our first layer of green. And you don't have to stress about this application. You're just gonna kind of lay it on as thick or as thin as you want. I always say start light and then work your way up, like if you want to make it darker. Watercolors are good with that kind of balance. You don't have to worry about, so this beautiful little effect at the bottom, you don't have to worry about that right now because we're not doing necessarily focusing on it too much yet. However, you can kind of have a little bit of a watery effect right here, very lightly. This is definitely a little bit of a different green than the other one. This one's definitely more vibrant, and it's this one that I used. And this one, I think it's called, it's just called the light green. This is a nice color. This is not a regular color pencil, by the way. This is a watercolor color pencil. So I'm curious if anybody has those, let me know. I would love to know if you're using that. Again, in my picture, like in the picture, this green looks so much more limey, like a lime green. But in the camera, it looks kind of grassy. So that's okay. Can't really go wrong with green anyway. You could also use a more like bluish green. That's also okay. Yeah, okay, great. I'm glad you agree. I love watercolor pencils. I didn't know how to use them at first, but it's a very they give it a nice texture to your painting. So, and that's the one that I used for my original one, but I realized you can also add the texture afterwards. It's not a big deal. Okay, there we go. So I'm just kind of applying the green progressively. Some of them might need a little bit more, but you don't have to do any highlights or any shadows right now. You're just adding the green color. Oops. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's just inspired by the spring because here in Canada we can't wait for it to come. Clearly. So it must be nice in Australia all the time, I'm assuming. Oops. There we go. Yeah, the colors turned out very pastel-y. I like that too, actually. The color match is good because the first one was a little bit more like, I feel like the vibrancy was a little intense. These are more spring colors, so I like that. So. And sometimes watercolors can dry differently. I think I said that already. But yeah, they dry differently than they are when they're applied, they're like much darker. And then when they dry, they kind of become either dull or like more pastel looking. So we're almost done with these ones. And then we can add the shadows. There we go. And if you have any questions for anybody that joined a little bit later, let me know if you have any questions. It's also, you can also rewind the video or pause it, I think. But yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I figured it was the next day. That's nice. It's still Friday here. Still kind of, and it's very cold tonight. Any of my Canadian friends can, I guess it's not that cold, but it's a little bit colder than, like it was really nice a couple of days ago and now it's cold. It's very sad, but that's okay. It was raining, and then today, like the sun came out for a little bit, but it was still kind of like 5 degrees, I think, or something. Yeah, so the paintings, you can post them on the Facebook group. There's a Facebook group. On the description, you can see the Facebook group information, but if not, I'll post it for you on the chat, okay? It's like a tutorial, like the free, what do you call it? The free YouTube version group, not the actual artist palette. Let me see if I can find it really quickly for you. Just for everybody else that wants to post or finish flowers. Let me just find it for you. Yeah, so the artist palette drawing support group and free event. So that's the one. So I'll put it here. Yeah, because we love seeing them. Hold on, I'll post it here for you, okay? There we go. So you can find it there. So the title is in there. It's like the, because there's two of them. There's like the normal one, and then this one is like the free event one. Yeah, no problem. And I think, yeah, I think that's the one. But let me know if you have any issues. Otherwise, I don't think there's another one. But yeah, you guys should definitely post your stuff. We all love seeing the beautiful work that everybody does, how everybody kind of puts, sometimes they put their own spin on it. There we go. Okay, so we have our beautiful little flowers. Now, what I do want you to do, since you have the colors kind of already put there, you could take some of that green that you use for these and a little bit of water on your brush, and you can kind of start, maybe a little bit more water actually. You can start kind of bringing it, doing kind of like a little bit of a blobs around the flowers. Not blobs, like just water splashes, I guess you could say. Just something like that. Something simple, nothing too pigmented. You don't need a lot of pigment for it. You just need more water than pigment to kind of bring it out. There. So that's, I think that looks good enough. But then you want to add some shadows. So the shadows, you don't want to make them too harsh. So I have 2 greens here that I might test out. There's the names are so weird. I don't think you guys are going to find the same ones. But okay, you can either use, let's see the olive green, because the olive green might be really nice actually for this one. So there's one called olive green. And it looks like this. Ooh, no, I don't like that one at all actually. It literally looks like olive. Actually, maybe it could work, but I'm gonna try a different green. Because that's definitely not the same green that I used for this one. For that one, I use this green. It's like a much more, has a little bit more of a blue undertone, and it's called, where's the name of this one? Emerald green. Emerald green, yes, that's the one. Because emerald green has definitely more of a bluish undertone. So I'm just gonna find one that looks close to that so I can use that. Maybe this one. Okay, that one works. So this one looks like this. You see, it has a much deeper tone. However, the olive green might look better with this one. So it's okay. It's up to you. Kind of like play around with it and see what looks better. This one is called Viridian green. But emerald green, if you have an emerald green, use that one. So this green is going to be used for the top of the stems. So you're just going to color those stems. It looks black, but I promise it's not black. And for this one, I would suggest using a smaller brush because you are going to be going inside those little areas. So I'm just going to use a much smaller brush. And you can blend out the green, the darker green, to go down a bit. Like that. And you can bring down that green all the way to the one side of the stem. It doesn't have to be super harsh. You can just have like a subtle shadow. or not shadow, like, yeah, like a subtle, yeah, shadow on the side, kind of. And then you're going to do that with all of them, okay? So you're going to add that nice little green at the top. This is where your pigment source is going to be coming from, because then you just have to drag it down. Okay, so it's a little bit different. I'm just going to drag it down a bit. Oh, excuse me. And then my shadow is going to be over here as well. So try to be consistent with the shadow. Like if you're choosing the right side to have a shadow or the left side, try to be consistent with it and make sure that all the stems have that shadow at the same time, at the same side. However, over here, for example, on the leaves, you would see a little bit of the shadow would be on the other side. So we're just going to add a little bit of green, this dark green over here. Well, I guess it would be kind of like mostly on the whole leaf because the flower is on top of this one, right? So you just have to do like a very subtle line and then add water to kind of blend it into the rest of the leaf. You can be kind of messy with it. Not messy with it, but it just depends how much texture you want to add. Right? And then you want to do these, color this whole little section green, like really dark green. So that it really pops. Okay. So you do that for that one and you do that for this one as well. There we go. I love those little folds. I think they're really nice when you're doing flowers and leaves in general. But then this one would also have a little shadow over here. Just be careful with how much pigment you use. You don't want to overdo it. That's why the color pencils also work really nice for this kind of stuff because there's a lot of like build up to it. That's okay. Nice. That's good. So those shadows are really, really nice and important because you want to have those beautiful shadows kind of poking through. And it's just simply by adding two different colors, right? So again, obviously your greens can be different than mine. They don't have to be the same. Play around with different variations of it if you want, and then see what you like. I have a hard time picking like the green colors because there's so many different types that you can play around with. So see this shadow right here? This one's nice and important because this will give your painting and your flowers more depth to it. So by adding these dark little areas, you're giving it that nice sense of like, oh, things are overlapping. They're kind of, you know, all around each other. They're not flat. You know what I mean? So they're important for that, for those reasons. Because half of like making flower paintings look good is just, yeah, just adding those nice little shadows. Because we could have left it like it was, right? And haven't like made it look really pastel-y. But this just takes it into that next, more of a 3D layering. And my first one, sorry, my second one always turns out to be my more liked one or my favorite one. So I end up framing that one instead. But that's okay. I usually give the first one as a gift. This makes a really nice card. Mother's Day card or a spring card if you give cards in the springtime. They make nice little cards. And then we're going to do the top part here. It's nice and pigmented here. You could add a little bit of black to this one. Oops, oh my goodness. Just be careful with the brush. You could add a little bit of black to the very top of it for that extra bit of contrast. And I'll show you. Actually, I added like a really dark brown with my pencil crayon here. See? So it's like super, super dark. That way it's nice and dark here. There we go. Okay, good. You're very welcome. There we go. Yeah, I think you can. I think it does let you post. You just have to, I don't know if it lets you post unless you remember. Like you have to join the page, but I'm not 100% sure. But you can double check. If it doesn't let you post, just join. Anybody can join. There we go. That looks pretty nice. I'm just adding a little bit. So if you find that the shadow is too harsh, just clean it up a little bit by blending it out a bit more. So this one, I feel like it's not dark enough, so I'm just going to bring it down like that. And then the rest of them, you're doing the same thing, right? You're kind of creating a shadow here and there. This one the shadow would be here because the flower is kind of hovering over it. They don't have to be that harsh though. You can just make sure that you blend them out or dilute them with your brush. Here we go. I just love blending colors. Like the gradients, I love doing that. So if you feel like it's, you want to make this nice and dark here because you don't want them to blend with each other. So just make that nice and dark and bring it up a little bit more before you blend it out. That makes sense? So, because they're very close together, so you don't want them to touch, essentially. You want them to still have a separation. So in order to show that, you have to make this really, really nice and dark. Okay. And then our last one is over here. So you just have to do this one. I really did that. Sorry. This one right here, we're just going to color this nice and green. A little bit lighter. That's okay. So these ones are Faber-Castell. Faber-Castell. Let me see that. Oops. These are the only ones I've used so far. They were gifted to me by the other instructors, which was awesome because I never got to try them before. So I love them. But I can't say which other ones might be good because I've never used them before. But Faber-Castell so far, pretty nice. No worries, hon. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate that. You definitely can watch this anytime. This will be here forever. So you could come watch it and at any time you have free time if you're not painting live with me. There we go. So it looks really nice so far, but the green at the bottom is very not the kind of green I like. It's a little bit yellowish. So I'm going to go in with this emerald green and I'm going to do the same thing. I have a little bit of water, more water than pigment, and I'm just kind of blobbing it out and slightly blending it. Another way you can do it also is if you just put water down in some spots, and then you can go back in with your pigment and let the pigment kind of do its thing. But then sometimes it might be a little too harsh, so you just have to see what you like. That looks okay. Once it dries, it does. So by the way, so because this paper is a little bit different, this one's hot press, the application might look a little different in terms of the bottom part. this looks really nice because it's hot press, cold press. Yeah. So that's my biggest thing with hot press. Although it looks very pretty and vibrant, it has a different type of application to it. So I'm just kind of moving things around a little bit just so I can blend it out a bit more. I also, let me just see if I can zoom out though. No, I cannot. Okay, that's good. So now you can add a little bit of droplets. These are optional, obviously. So I just took my brush with a little bit of water and a little bit of pigment. And I'm going to tap it so that it creates these little green splatter paint. And these are optional. Like I said, they don't have to be there if you don't want them to. I'm also going to do a couple of yellow ones. And just kind of slightly tap it. You can also do it like this, where you just tap your brush with it. And then I let them dry and see how they look, right? Because otherwise, sometimes it doesn't turn out, like I could go back and add more to them, right? So it's usually okay. But yeah, that's about it. So this one's a pretty simple one. It's super fun to do. I love doing this one just because it reminds me so much of spring. I cannot wait for the warm weather to come. But if anybody has any questions, you can ask me now. It could be about anything in terms of what I used. I hopefully I went through everything that I needed to in terms of different types of materials that you can use. And I'm just gonna make sure I shared the right group. There we go. Where'd it go? Oh, okay. That works. But yeah, if I don't see any. So the next event I have, I just wanted to let you guys know about the next event is for me personally as Anna, the instructor. It's another spring inspired painting. It's a horse though. So if you want to check that out, you can go to the website and see the watercolor events. I'm mostly only do watercolor events, and you can find the horse one there. It's like a spring inspired horse painting. And that's going to be, when is it? March 29th, I think. Yeah. So towards the end of March. So that's when that one's going to be. And yeah, I would love to see everybody. That one is a paid event. This one was a free event. And I always appreciate, any tips that you are able to give. You're welcome to. I just sent out the quick little link about it, but I enjoy having everybody here and I appreciate your beautiful comments. Thank you so much. Please post your pictures if you can. I absolutely love seeing them and they make me really happy. And yeah, so I don't think I see any questions coming in. So I will let you guys go and hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day if you celebrate it. And if not, still have a nice restful weekend. All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you, everybody.